Hi, and welcome to Foreign Comics Calling, the podcast for all things foreign comics related. I'm Ken, and on behalf of my co-hosts Eric, Matt, and Stephen, we'd like to welcome you to another mind-expanding episode, a true foray into the world of foreign comic collecting.
Awesome. Mind expanding. Last week it was scintillating. So cool.
Now it's psychedelic.
Yeah, now what are we doing here?
Love it. And we have a much signaled guest joining us today, Tim Bildhauser. Hey Tim.
Hello.
Tim as well. Hello. We got a lot of questions for you, sir. So hopefully you're ready for some answers. And
oh, geez, you're assuming I know anything at all.
Well, these guys have
We're
certainly
ready for
sung
some
your
kind of
praises. I'm sure it's warranted. So
we're ready for some kind of answers. We'll see what they are.
Yeah, and we got some listener questions I wanted to throw out, and we lost Matt on last episodes, and we put a pin in talking about Gurries. So I don't know if we're going to get to that today, but since we have Tim with us, but let's see how far we get. Right. The first thing is, I guess thanks everyone for listening. We usually do this at the end, so you can find us on iTunes, on Breaker, on Anchor. If you would do us a favor, if you're listening now on any of those apps, just click a couple of stars, leave us a rating while you're listening, right? Feeds our souls. So the cliffhanger we had last episode, when we last spoke, I threw out this question, which was, what's the biggest sort of unknown tip for finding a book? And we'll include Tim on this too. Ken, what's your initial thought? What's an unknown tip?
Well, this is a tricky one, Eric. I've been thinking about this all week long, honest to God, and I think I might have come to a point where I'm so blasé about all this now. I don't think I can think of a hidden tip because I just go and do the damn thing now. If I need to get into a foreign site, but I don't understand what's being said, then it's Google Translate. I mean, that's the biggest worldwide tip. But whether it's a hidden tip, I don't know. I don't think so. Unless there are some people going, hey, yeah, I've never used Google Translate before. What a great tip, Ken. But to me, I'm just so blasé about it now. It's second nature. And I'm not trying to sound big-headed or whatnot. It's just there's nothing hidden to me anymore. Sorry, guys.
No worries. Matt,
No, that
Steve,
makes sense.
Matt, and how about you? Anything that came to mind for you?
Yeah, actually, I've actually found foreigns in the darndest of places, and that place is kind of like Stephen, like you, like going to American shows and digging through boxes and finding them that way. But I've found them on American dealer websites because what I've found is a lot of these American sites, whether they be Metropolis, whether it be some of the others, they don't make it easy to do advanced searches for foreigns. So one of the things that I learned was if you just look up edition, very often the dealers now are using what goes on to the slabs, whether it's either Mexican edition or Italian edition or whatever. I found some killer stuff at Metropolis. I found some killer stuff with what's the guy out of Florida, Tim? DTS Collectibles.
Dave Alexander.
Yep, I found some stuff on his site.
You can also find stuff with Al Stoltz at Basement Comics.
And Al Stoltz at Basement Comics.
Stoltz,
and people don't think to look at American dealer websites for foreigns, yet if you get lucky, you can find them there. So that would be kind of, I guess, the biggest hidden tip is that there's foreigns sort of hiding under our noses. And because, it can be a little difficult trying to find them using the advanced searches, DTS makes it easy. They have a whole foreign section. Al Stoltz makes it easy. They have a foreign section, but a lot of people wouldn't think to look there. Metropolis is a little more difficult. But if you put in edition into the search bar, it will bring up, of course, all the other American, there's different editions within the American, but it'll also bring up foreigns. And, you can find some foreign stuff on American dealer stock online.
Yeah.
And a lot of people haven't thought to think of that.
This is true. I've just got to pitch in there. You're absolutely right, Matt. Absolutely right. I found one of my Greek caps on my comic shop.
Yeah.
Or a weird place to
There
look
you
for it,
go.
you know, but
Yeah.
it was there. I just put in
Yeah,
there.
my comic shop
Yeah.
is another one.
Yeah. They are out there hiding away.
Awesome. Yeah, and especially if you have a keyword that's unique in a foreign language, like you mentioned my comic shop. I just bought a Dr. Scintilla off of there just by searching that word. But if I had searched strange, they would never have returned, right?
Yeah, exactly. You just got to kind of know your little tips to finding that stuff.
Yeah. How about you, Stephen? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, that kind of adds on to what I was thinking about, because most of the people that are going to do or are considering getting into the foreign comic collecting, obviously, if you're new to it, you're going to have to kind of wean yourself into it. But there's a lot more research and knowledge involved in what to know in order to do the research and find what it is you're looking for. You have to know the different languages and what the books are called in those different languages, and different wordings and stuff like that. So you can't just say Doctor Strange Spanish and necessarily hope to get what you're looking for, because a lot of people who are selling these books don't even really understand everything that they're selling a lot of times. So you have to do your own research and understand that some people will be very generic in how they describe something, because they may not even know exactly what it is they have. So, if you go even if you just go onto eBay, and you do a search, understand what it is you're looking for, and be willing to put in the time and effort to spend a lot of time trying the different keywords, trying different things, trying different descriptionary terms, titles of books, countries you're looking for, just the general words of foreign or edition or foreign edition, or whatever, and you might get a lot of hits when you do that. But if you're willing to put in the time and effort, to scan and scroll through and go through all that stuff, you can come across those hidden gems, whether it's through, like you say, one of the store's websites, eBay, or wherever. Otherwise, a good key tip that I would give is just find the people who know what they're doing, or find the people who at least have somewhat of a knowledge of what it is you're looking for, and talk with those people and say, where do you go? What do you look for? How do you do it? And then apply that to what you're doing. And then sometimes it's just getting lucky, like was mentioned here, when you're at a show. I go to a lot of shows. So when you're at shows and you're just looking, understanding what it is when you come across it. Because a lot of times I'll be going through a box and I'm like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, right there in the middle of a box, hidden within a whole bunch of other stuff, is a foreign issue. And I don't realize it's a foreign issue because of the title. It's how it looks.
Yeah.
It's how it looks. So a lot of that hidden tip is do some research. Find out what these books look like. Commit that to memory. And when you're going through stuff and you're just scanning, you'll immediately recognize it. When it goes across, you'll go, wait, that was something else. And you go back, yeah, that's a foreign. What is that? Then you'll see the titling. Then you'll see everything. And you go, yep, that's a such and such edition or whatever,
Cool.
So,
yeah. How about you, Tim? I should have gone to you first since you were the guest. I was remiss in that. I apologize. How about you, Tim?
No.
Any thoughts on like a sort of an unknown tip for a newbie, if you will?
Well, quite honestly, and this is probably going to make Matt giggle a little bit. For the better part of a decade, he has been referring to me as the lucky bastard.
He's a lucky bastard.
I have a tendency to come across really great stuff when I'm not even looking for it.
Ah, you lucky bastard.
Yeah.
Exactly. How do you teach lucky bastardism? I don't know how to teach that.
Yeah, there's no teaching for that. And I've had that too. I've had that happen too. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, seriously though. I mean, you can pursue a book, and I've done this for literally 4 or 5 years, and not find a copy of it anywhere in the damn world. At the same time, it starts to get frustrating, and you reach the point where you're like, all right, I give up. I'm going to move on. Maybe every single copy out there has been destroyed, and which may be the case with some stuff like, some of the stuff from the Philippines or, some of those places. A real good example of that is the Mexican edition of Swamp Thing number 10. I searched for that book for 5 years. I know everybody I had contact with down in Mexico and South America. And our buddy Tony Pamilla had, I think at one point, like 60 or 70 contacts that he was dealing with. You know, I told him, put the word out. I will pay $250 for any complete copy of that book. I don't care about the grade. I just want a copy because it's the last one I needed to finish the run of Wrightson books. And nothing. I mean, 5 years goes by and nobody can find a copy of this book. I'm doing some eBay searches one night out of boredom. Just, there was nothing on TV and I was just trying to, kind of decompress. And as I'm running through, I did a search for Swamp Thing, and just out of the blue, this lot comes up, and it's like 5 books, all Mexican books, peeking out from like the top left corner is peeking out from behind one of the other books. You couldn't even see the cover fully, but looking at it, I know exactly what the hell it was. Now, the guy had it up for a buy now for like $25 with free shipping. I could not have clicked the mouse any faster. But again, it was just, sometimes when you put too much effort into something, it's that whole, you can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
You have to take that step back.
Yeah, there's a great tip in there too. If you see a lot for sale, look closer.
Lot.
Right?
Oh yeah.
That's another one. That's another one of those keywords. If you put in lot or foreign lot or just comic lot, you'd be surprised how often in those pictures where they may not show you everything, like with Tim there, you just see something peeking out. Say, oh, you know what? Because you, like I say, if you committed to memory what these books look like, you'll see it peeking out. And you don't even have to see the whole cover, and you'll be like, that's a Navarro. And you'll see it and you'll be like, and you'll see just enough of the cover, whatever, be like, I believe I know exactly what cover that is and what book that is,
Yeah. So, and that's exactly how that happened.
And Tim then shit himself and hit the buy it now.
No, I
had to change his underwear.
After I hit the buy it now and made the payment through PayPal, I got up, walked into the kitchen, made myself a drink. I went back and sat down in front of the computer.
That was the longest shipment you waited on in your life, I'm sure, too, right?
No, actually, the longest shipment I waited on. Oh, geez. There was one deal that me and Matt did together with somebody, and it took us almost a year and a half to get the books.
Wow. Shit. That was a nightmare. That was out of the Philippines.
Wow. Yes.
That was the first big Philippine. I don't know. I think that was one of the first big, huge groups of books that came from the Philippines to the U.S. that I know of.
That might still be the largest Filipino score as far as bookstore stuff.
Awesome.
How many books?
I've seen people get 5 copies of random stuff, 10 copies, but I mean, how many books was that total,
huge.
Matt? It was like 50 or 60 books total.
50 or 60 books, and it ended up being I got it. I mean, think about this, okay? The Filipinos are pretty rare, and every single one of them, if it's around, is a jewel, right? Out of that collection, Tim and I split it. I don't remember, Tim. It wasn't 50-50. I think it was 60-40 or something. But I had Filipino books for days. I was giving Filipino books away for free, just as gifts.
Wow.
Cool.
Actually, Matt, you gave me some, I think.
Yeah, I gave you some caps.
Yeah, I had 4 caps off you.
I mean, I just gave them away for free as gifts at the time. But that deal, me and Tim pulled our hair out of our heads. And, I'm not going to name any names, but we were dealing with an American comic collector that was in the Philippines, and he kept wanting more money and more money. At one point, I almost felt like we were getting scammed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he kept changing the deal, and it was frustrating. And Matt had actually started that whole negotiation before I was involved in it. And then the guy came up with some more stuff, and he's like, well, if you want this too, then it's going to be this much more. And he came to me because there was some Adams and Wrightson stuff in there. And I was like, yeah, I really want these books, but, I'm not paying what this guy's asking. I'll pay this much. And it was just ridiculous because after that, we sent him the money, and then he's like, oh, yeah, well, it's going to take this long, and it's got to go to this person here. And then, they'll ship it to you once they have it in the States. And I was like, look, I don't care what has to be done. Get it here. You have this much time.
Yeah.
And we paid him a lot of money. I mean, it wasn't peanuts. We had paid, I don't remember the exact amount, but it was enough that it was significant. And at one point, I basically had to tell the guy, "Listen, are you trying to burn us? Because I can't. We can't send you any more money." I think
Right.
I even sent him more money. I sent him an extra $100 at one point.
Did he
Just
have
trying to
a?
get the goddamn
Was
things here.
he was in Nigeria and he was a prince that needed? Was one of
Very
those?
much so.
Felt like it.
It felt
Yeah.
like it. And
You know
was
what? Actually, that's a great topic to, like, there is inherent risk in buying overseas, in shipping, in sending money to an unknown person, right? Yeah, we should really get into that because I think
Yeah,
there's
it's all
probably
got to be.
a lot of lessons to be learned in that. Probably the
Absolutely.
hard way. I'm sure we all have tales like
Yeah.
that.
Well, knock on wood.
Yeah.
I have, in the 10 years or so that I've been collecting international stuff, only ever had one book not show up. And this is absolutely ridiculous. It was this guy that I was dealing with down in the southern part of Mexico. He had Nick Carty romance book. It's a great cover. And I bought it from him. It was like, with the shipping, it was like $20. And he ships it out, and I'm watching it, because he sent it certified down there, so when it hits the US, the certified number on their packages, you can track it on the USPS site. And I watched this thing, and it gets all the way to the post office in Michigan City. And at the time I had a PO box, and it had the notation online available for pickup. I go down there, they can't find it. They lost the damn thing.
Jesus.
Oh,
and they're like, well, you can talk to the seller, and they can file a claim. I'm like, no, you don't understand. This guy doesn't speak a word of English.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah. So before we move on, just to finish, I want to throw in an unknown, sort of one of those tip things to close off that question. One that I have had luck with. I'm sure you guys have done it too. Just tell your local comic book shop that you're interested in foreigns, because you never know what's going to float in through your local store. Right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, my local store, I have two that I go to. Well, I have a bunch that I go to frequently, but the one has foreigns, and he's one of those guys that overprices them, right? Just enough where it's like, it's prohibitive, right? But he's got like a great selection of foreigns. But the other shop I go to, I just mentioned it to him, and like the next day he had an Italian Captain America #1, and he gave it to me for $20. Just
nice.
Been doing business there for years, right? So yeah, let your local comic shop know that you're interested in foreigns, because who knows what's coming through their doors, right?
Yeah. Very true.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of times when I go to these shows, I'll go around to the dealers, and as I go around to them, I'll be like, "Do you have any foreigns? Do you have any foreigns?" And they usually, like I said this in the past show, they give me this funny. I usually get 3 different responses. They're like, "What are you talking about? What's that?" Or they'll be like, "Oh," and I'll say, "Oh, like German editions, Brazilian editions, anything like that." They'll be like, "Oh, I think I have some of that, but I didn't bring it with me because whatever, But I've done that so much that now recently I've started seeing them bring more. Started actually seeing them bringing some of them to the show. Maybe not a lot, but some.
That's cool.
So that's getting better. And I've actually seen them up on the walls, like wall books. When you go to these shows and they have the big ones on the wall, I'm starting to see foreigns.
Yeah, it's
show up
definitely
on
growing,
wall.
isn't it? It's definitely growing.
And that's the word of mouth thing too, right? Like each time we ask, they remember and they go, huh. Right, and they start looking at it more and more.
That's part of it, but you have to remember, I go to a lot of conventions.
Tim goes to more than I do.
But between 2018 and 2019, I did like 70 shows, and a lot of these dealers, I see them all the time. They, we've talked on and off here and there. They know what I collect. So it's been brought to their attention that, yes, there is a market for this stuff. So some of these guys, when they come across that stuff, will go through the effort to actually, kind of put it out there to see, what kind of interest they can get. Right. There was a show I went to in New Jersey, probably 4 years ago. And there's a guy had copy of Titanus Planetarios on his wall. It prints Strange Adventures 205, the first Dead Man. And he had it up there, and I saw that immediately. It stuck out like a sore thumb. And I'm like, hey, what do you got on that book? He picks it up, looks at it, looks at the back of it. He's like, I didn't put a price on it. He's like, how's $40? I've only seen like 3 or 4 copies of that book even surface in the last decade. So,
Right.
I was
Yeah.
like, $40?
I
Yeah, I'll
would
take
say
that.
Yeah,
that.
sounds good. That'll do.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's cool. Well, let's jump into Tim. Who are you? Because I don't know. Yeah,
Who is this guy? Who's this
I
weird
think
person on our show?
the question that I was asking the other guys, sort of an introductory sense. So let's put it to you too. And I want to get into what you do and all that stuff as well, because I think it's super interesting. How did you get into collecting foreigns? Like, what was your initial entree?
Okay. So I was kind of, okay. How long does this thing run?
Well, in a nutshell, a shorter version of it, which
Okay.
we try to, yeah.
I was looking around online.
Condensed, yeah.
About 10 years ago or so. And I'd been looking at my collection. I'd gotten bored and realized that, with enough time and money, anybody can duplicate my entire collection. There's nothing unique or significant about it. I stumbled across a guy that was selling a Batman 251 in French from Belgium. And I'm looking at this thing, and he had like $15 on it. And I was like, if I had that book and, had Neil Adams sign it, who the hell else is going to have that?
Right.
And then it just kind of snowballed from there. I bought a few books on eBay. I started like searching around like Steven suggested for, Mexican, Mexico, Spanish, Spain, all that kind of stuff. And it just, it just, like I said, it snowballed. I came across a book from the UK, one of the Alan Class books, Creepy Worlds.
Lovely.
It was the, God, I'm trying to remember what issue it is, 36. It's FF number 5 is the cover.
Right.
And I was looking for more information on that. So I reached out to actually Matt to see, what he might know. And that was at the suggestion of Liam and Hector, who he mentioned previously. And we chatted online for a little bit, and then I want to say it was a week or two went by, and he's like, "Hey, why don't we get together and talk on the phone?" And then this whole FCC thing happened, and
it snowballed.
It did.
So is there
my involvement in all of this, everything that's happened that I have a hand in, happened completely on accident.
Right.
And I'm sure it's the way it's going to be is with a number of other people
I think
as
so
well.
too.
Yeah.
Is there a point for all of us where, and Tim, since you're talking about sharing your story, is there a point where, like a tipping point, where you go from, you were collecting American comics and filling runs and chasing grades and whatnot, and you had a comic budget where that gets overrun by foreign collecting? Like, you used to spend whatever $100 a week on comics. Now you spend, on domestic ones, and now you spend $20 on domestic ones and $80 on foreigns. Like, was there a tipping point where you sort of just dropped off the one and focused primarily on foreigns?
Yes and no. I mean, quite honestly, by the early 2000s, I mean, probably 02, 04, I had really stopped buying new comics at all. Mm-hmm. There was too much out there. And, once it got to the point where, DC did like the whole New 52 thing, Marvel was doing their reboots, it seemed like every 3 months, they lost me. And I've always been more of a silver, bronze, copper age collector anyway. So, I had a budget, but it was pretty much going to, a book here, a book there. I've always approached comics with the mentality of, if I don't have the cash in my pocket for it, it can wait. If I don't have the money on hand, I won't put it on a credit card. Right. And that's one thing that a lot of people, they make that mistake. And you can dig yourself a real big hole real fast doing that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But it's a balancing act. It's a balancing act as well, though, because when you're dealing with foreigns, that can become an issue because, like we've mentioned here on the show before, and I know Kenneth said, most of the time, if you see it, you get it because you may never see it again when it comes to these foreigns. So, yeah, you're right. You don't want to dig yourself into a debt hole if you don't have the money on hand right at the moment.
You've always got to have a plan
But
B.
at the same
In my
Yes.
experience, you've got to have a plan.
You got to have something set aside because because you may come across the thing you're looking for, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't have the cash, but I know for a fact if I don't get this book right now, I may never see it again.
I will quite often talk about how broke I am, but I've always got a little bit in reserve on the off chance one of a few certain books ever actually does surface if it exists.
Mm. I mean, to be fair, that's really good. But the other thing that a lot of people don't bother to do is they don't talk to the seller. If you haven't quite got enough money for that one book, then approach the seller and say, hey, can you do some sort of layaway plan for me? I haven't quite got the money, but I can do it in 4 equal payments. Is that okay? And 9 times out of 10 times, they're going to be accepting of that. And they'll say, yeah, that's fine.
Right.
So, exactly.
Yeah, they want to make a sale.
So
they want to make a sale.
Go and ask the seller, can you do something for me?
Right. And when it's something like that, they're looking at it from the viewpoint of, okay, I can sell this book. I got guaranteed money coming in on it. It's not all coming in at once, but really, how many people are looking for this? If they don't understand how many people have gotten into this, because this has grown exponentially in the last 10 years. I mean, it's most people wouldn't even, they wouldn't understand it unless you went back and were able to read through the private message thread that was running on the chat board we were all talking on. There was 6 or 8 of us to start out with, and then it kind of grew, and eventually there was 15 of us, and then there was about 20, and then it just it kept building and building, and now the FCC page on Facebook has 600 or 800 members. I mean,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. So you
and I love it when I'm at a show, because I've noticed now when I'm with Tim or any of these other guys with CBCS, when I'm at these shows, I've started seeing people walk up to the booth now with foreigns.
Cool.
Every once in a while, and they'll put them in front of me, and my eyes will light up, and I'll be like, "Oh, look!"
Yeah, the next thing you know, I'm getting tapped on the shoulder. Hey, look at this! Look at this!
Yeah, and Tim's getting tapped on the shoulder, but if Tim's not there, but I'll get this response because I know what I'm looking at, and the person who's coming up to me, their face just lights up. Because they're like, oh, you know what this is, and you're in this as well. So it's just neat when I see.
Yeah, that's super neat.
That's
cool.
cool.
Back in the day, I'd like to reiterate what Tim said. Back in the day, you couldn't get people to even blink an eye at forums. No. I mean, when we did the first con, we'd have people come. We'd literally have people walk by the booth. It would catch their eye because they recognized the cover. And then once they realized it wasn't American, you would literally see this switch.
They would backpedal.
Brains. Yeah.
Yeah. They'd be walking right by, and they would literally take 3 steps backwards to take a closer look at what the hell they just saw.
Yeah, I call that the WTF moment.
Yeah,
exactly.
And oftentimes but a lot of them would, once they realized it was a foreign, then they'd just keep walking.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like, oh, that's amazing. 5-129. Wait a minute, that's different. Then they'd look at it, and then they back up and go, like, oh, that's some other. I don't care about.
But that was in the early days. Now, if we did that show with the booth we had, we'd probably have a crowd around it.
Well, we had a crowd all weekend. That was the thing. And the funny thing that you didn't mention about that show, Matt, was, ironically, most of the people that came by that booth we had set up was women. It was wives, girlfriends, whatever the case may be, that, they were wandering around bored because, their boyfriend or husband or brother, whoever they were there with, was off doing, their thing. And they saw this stuff and they thought it was really cool. They'd go, and this happened all weekend long.
And it wasn't just because of your rugged good looks and stuff.
Or good looks? I don't think so.
No, definitely not. No, they would literally go track down, whoever they were there with, and drag them over there to show them. And some of the guys were like, oh, well, it's just, reprints in another language. But I mean, a lot of them, I mean, the discussions we had that weekend, it was constant. It was nonstop.
Yeah, we talked our asses off.
We spent, I mean, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just talking to people nonstop. And, they were like, well, what's this worth? And we're like, well, maybe something, maybe nothing. It depends on what somebody's willing to pay for it. But by the end of the weekend, I mean, both of us, our voices were shot. We could barely talk at all.
I lost my voice that weekend.
You did a little video, didn't you, at the time, Matt? And you could tell in the video that your voice was broken and you could hardly get anything out. I remember seeing that. Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's videos. There are videos on Vimeo of that. They haven't been seen in a long time.
Yeah, you should
and that should probably stay that way.
No, share them on the podcast Facebook page so people can see them.
Yeah, I need to go. We did 3 of them. We interviewed.
Don't you need a consent form for me to do that?
Tim's like, I don't want this.
Well, let me get back to Tim's sort of trajectory. So, how did you get from that Batman book to becoming the sort of foreign specialist at CBCS? How did you make that leap? How did you become the expert?
Okay, so again, and I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. We heard that CBCS was opening up. And we'd already approached CGC twice about, getting the labels right. And they just kind of blew it off. They looked at it from an aspect of there's never going to be enough money in this for it to be worth our while. And we're like, we'll give you the right information. Like, well, how do we know it's right? Because we're doing the research.
Yeah, they didn't trust us.
So I sat down and I actually physically wrote a letter and mailed it to CBCS. Saying, hey, look, here's what we're proposing. This is what we collect.
Did you send magazines too, Tim? I thought you sent issues 1 and 2.
I may have.
Yeah.
But, it turned out, I ended up getting a phone call, met up with Borak over in Chicago at the Wizard World show that August. We talked a little bit. He asked if I knew anybody that knew how to grade. I'm like, well, I don't suck at it. And, by October, I was in Florida. So.
Cool. Well.
And Borak, if I remember correctly, Borak was really, really fascinated and very accepting of the foreign stuff. He really loved it.
Well, when I was on the phone with him, because we talked a couple of times, but one of the times I was on the phone with him, I directed him to my website that I had up at the time. And, he's looking at this stuff. He's like, wow, I've never seen this. This is so cool. And I mean, and don't get me wrong. I mean, Steve's been around the hobby for a while. I mean, 40, 50 years, give or take. He's old, kind of crusty too. Mm-hmm. He's
a deadhead.
Looking at all these books and these are all, editions of these books. And was on, and, they haven't seen this stuff. For whatever reason, whether, they glossed over it or they just, never paid attention, whatever the case may be. That kind of says something.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because I knew it was really early on when we were all, in that private message group talking that, there's a market here. It's developing. And again, like I said, it's grown leaps and bounds from where it was. And I see the growth every year, because other than being the international comic specialist at CBCS, I am also an advisor for the Overstreet price guide.
Right.
And for the last 3-4 years, Mark Huseman over there, every time I send him my market report, he always sends me a response back. He's like, this is awesome. I always love reading your report when it comes in. He's like, this stuff is so cool.
Without giving away anything that you shouldn't give away, like what kind of metrics would you look at that you can quantify an uptick?
Basically,
like when you walked in the door, it was 0 and now it's at 1,000, whatever. What are you looking at?
I don't really do anything along those lines because that would, in a certain regard, be a conflict of interest working for a grading company.
Right.
Because we're supposed to, assess condition, not value. The market determines the price. Right. So I will just record sales that I see happen, whether it be on eBay or, if I'm at a convention, somebody buys a book, if there's a private sale between a couple of collectors or a dealer and a collector, whatever the case may be, but if I get, verification from one or both parties involved, I'll include that. I'm not tracking, upswings in prices. I can tell you last year, there was a Relatos Fabulosos 160, which is the Mexican edition of House of Secrets 92, that sold for, I believe it was $1,500. The book was probably in the 3.5 to 4.0 range. So, and that's, probably about 3 times what it would sell for a US copy in the same grade.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Yeah, we were speculating on that on the last episode. So how about just sheer volume? Like, so now that it's known that there is an expert, and I keep using that word because you were modest about it before we started recording.
You'll have to tell me who this guy is.
Now that it's known that there's an expert at CBCS and foreigns, has there been a significant increase in volume of foreign books that get submitted there?
Oh, absolutely. Most people that submit foreign stuff for grading sends it to CBCS because they know the labels are going to get done right. There are still some people out there that'll send stuff to CGC just because, they don't want to send stuff to 2 different places. And I get that. But
or they don't know. Maybe they don't know.
Right.
Yet, right.
Well, there's that too. But there's, it's all a matter of preference. Whichever grading company you use, the grading part of it is going to get done the way it should. But with this stuff, proper classification is important. And I myself, not because I work for CBCS, but if I was just a collector and, somebody had one of these books in a slab and, the title said, Amazing Spider-Man, Marvel Comics, and it's not in English, I'm less inclined to buy that book.
Right.
Yeah. Accuracy is everything.
Yeah. So what tools do you have at your disposal? I'm assuming it's something you're constantly working on to classify things properly. Like, you get a new book in a foreign language you can't identify, and you've never seen the book before. How do you go about that, learning it?
Well, that's a little trickier. And it's one of those things where, it's experience comes into play. Languages, I'm pretty good at identifying, on site. I don't speak any other languages, but when it's written, I'm getting pretty good at translating Spanish, German, Italian, Portuguese.
Okay, boom.
I am exposed to this stuff a lot, not only for my own collection, but the stuff that gets submitted that I have to do labels for. So it's, it's time and experience. You do the same thing enough times, and, repetition builds memory like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that is also knowing the publishers
definitely.
and where they were at. So examining inside of the books and in the pages, finding just the key words you need to see, like the name of the publisher, and you're like, okay,
which works for some languages, but not all. If you're looking at Chinese, Japanese, Thai, Indonesian, it gets a little bit trickier. And that is where, one of the things that I will say, and this goes back to that whole tips thing, the Google Translate app for the phone is wonderful because they've got it refined to the point now where you can hold your phone over the text and it will translate it on the screen.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. So, to dig up the publisher information, the issue number, publication date, all that, it's just a matter of opening up that app and holding it over the text that you're trying to translate. And, if you hold it over it and it's not what you're looking for, move over to another part of the page. Eventually you're going to find it. It's all there.
Yeah, my favorite too.
Yeah. How about for bootleg copies? Yep. Something that's a little more off the record, if you will. Like, do you see a lot of those?
Not really, no. There have been a couple of things thrown in, like some of the Indonesian stuff I know, wasn't licensed, but there is still, issue numbers or publication dates on those. And, I put the appropriate information on there. The most common stuff from over there that I've seen, I want to say 4 or 5 copies of different books come in, were published by a company. It was Best Publishing.
Right.
So, I put them down as the publisher with, the date, and one of the things you'll notice too on foreign books is more often than not, they will include for the publication date, the month and a day of the week. So like, May 2nd, 1968.
Yeah.
And we don't put the
I'm
day
curious.
down, but, we know to put May of 68 for, when it was published.
Right.
I'm curious, because you were talking about bootlegs. Obviously, a bootleg is just something where they didn't get the licensing rights to be able to do it, but they did it anyway. But have you come across anything that you saw and you determined that it was actually counterfeit in some way,
The closest thing to that,
or had been seriously altered, in a
misrepresent,
shady
yeah.
way?
yeah, the closest thing to that I've seen,
Right.
Hector actually had 52 in Russian. It was done digitally. It was never actually printed, and he either printed off a copy or he had somebody do it, and he had submitted that, and that's something that it's probably the only one floating around out there, because I don't know who else would have actually run off a physical copy of it. Maybe somebody did. But that's probably the closest thing to a full-on bootleg. I mean, there's no publisher. It
was just a personal
Right.
project from someone.
It was a fan translation out of Russia, I believe.
Yeah, the next closest thing I can think of is there's a couple of guys in Germany that have been translating some of the non-canon Spidey stuff from Mexico into German. Nobody has submitted any of that stuff, so I don't know if they will, but that would be 100% bootleg, because again, they're not a publishing company. It's just a couple of fans doing it.
They're just doing it.
Right.
Right.
And those that, quite frankly, honestly, I don't know if we'd even grade. I mean, there's no copyright infringement because La Prensa doesn't exist anymore. But it's also one of those things where somebody that's looking to scam somebody on something could very easily do it, because they don't translate the text on the cover into German, only the interior stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, it's another one of those things, isn't it? Where if it does get out and it's graded by CBCS and somebody sells it a few years down the line, they kind of pick up again. It's like, hey, how come CBCS have actually graded this? It's bringing the company to disrepute. So fair play for not doing it.
My concern on that, quite honestly, would be more along the lines of somebody sends something like that to CGC that doesn't. I mean, they don't, to the best of my knowledge, have anybody over there that really knows this stuff. And I think Matt mentioned on one of the earlier podcasts that some of the reproduction stuff from Brazil they've graded.
Yes,
and it's not notated as being a reproduction. And with those non-canon Spideys, that would also be my concern, is that somebody sends it over there, and it gets a grade, and then you see a Ombre around a 128 that's a 9.8, and somebody shells out $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for it, because a raw copy just sold within the last month or so for like $2,100.
Are you talking about the Mac Division Historietas
No,
edition that graded in 9.6?
The La Prensa, the Peter and Gwen,
the wedding
cover.
issue.
Yeah.
Oh, the wedding issue.
Yeah.
The wedding issue. Yeah.
So if somebody sees one of those with a 9.8 on it, they might not look closely at the label, and you're not gonna be able to tell necessarily from the outside of the book, if the cover is not translated in German like the interior is, that's not the genuine article.
Right. Yeah. How about just from your perspective and your level of insight, Tim? Any other trends that you see in foreigns that you want?
Yeah, there are certain books that every time they hit the market, they go for an increasing amount. All of those non-canon Spideys are probably the biggest example. Those, every single one of those that hit the market this year that sold, I mean, went for, you know, a record sale number. A lot of the stuff that we used to see and just kind of like go, I'll pick up a copy later. Like a lot of the Williams stuff from Germany, especially like the number ones. Used to see a whole lot of the Williams stuff from Italy too, because at one point Williams was a publisher out of Italy. They had the license for just about all of Europe. So all the printing and translation was done in Italy, and then it was just distributed, you know, to each country. But a lot of the Williams stuff from Italy, you know, you don't see like you used to. When you do, the prices are up. I blame everybody in the U.S. that collects foreign books that's putting together a Spider-Man 300 set for the increased price on Uomo Ragno number 91 from Italy, which is that Spidey 300 with the black cover.
Can I tell a quick story?
That used to be like a €5 to €10 book all day long, and now I don't think you can touch one for under 25 or 30 euros, and that's not even a nice copy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let me tell a quick story on that. So we have a contact in Italy called, his name's Claudio. And one time he hit me up and he said, and I don't remember if I told you this, Tim, but he said, hey, will you go to the Italian forum and talk about something for me? And I said, what's up? What do you need me to go talk about? And he said, well, there's a bunch of Italian collectors that think that the Italian dealers are trying to rip us off. And I said, rip you off? What are you talking about? He said, well, you know, in Italy, they're not so key obsessed like we are, right? So Venom's first appearance, cool and all, but it's not necessarily on their back issue market going to sell for more or less than an issue before or after. So apparently what was happening is these Italian collectors were responding to the fact that Americans were picking up these Italian books on Italian eBay, and the Italian dealers were responding to the American money by listing those books for more, because every dealer, they sell a book and then it sells, and then they get another one and they might put it for, you know, a couple euros more, and then it sells, and then they keep going because the market is being affected by American cash.
If you increase your price and it continues to sell, why would you not continue to increase your price?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So these Italian collectors thought the dealers were trying to rip them off. And Claudio told me, go into this goddamn forum and tell these assholes that it's American money that's doing this. The Italian dealers aren't trying to rip these guys off. They're responding to American money flowing into the Italian back issue market. You want to talk about an interesting subject to talk about in the future? That's a really interesting one. Yeah. How does American money go into, because I know that we've talked about this, you've got the local indigenous back issue market. That's one thing. Then you've got the broader international back issue market that has a lot more money in it and American money. How are these back issue markets being affected by American money going in there and fucking around with that shit? And how are the local collectors that are used to paying, like Tim said, 5 to 10 euros for an Italian 300, how are they going to respond, and what is that going to do? That is an interesting subject as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a good one.
Absolutely.
And that kind of goes to that whole concept we put across here is, you know, that these books in these other countries were never originally intended to be even accessible to the American market.
Yep.
They were never intended for the American market to even know that they existed.
Not until globalism hit.
Yeah.
Until that hit.
And the interconnected world. Yep, you're exactly right.
Well, and I don't know if it was you, Matt, that mentioned it in one of the earlier podcasts too about, you know, some of these sellers, particularly from you know, Central America, are starting to bring their goods to American eBay because they know they're going to see more money out of it.
Yep. They're not hitting Mercado like.
Of course. Why wouldn't they? I mean, I don't blame them one bit. If the market's there and if the money's there and the American collectors out there are willing to shell it out because of the history of the sales. Why
Right.
wouldn't I? Don't blame
some
them.
people
Why
put
wouldn't
ridiculous prices on stuff, and it doesn't sell, and it sits there, and they relist it.
they? They do.
Lower it down a bit.
And it's, again though, to anybody getting into collecting this stuff, they need to spend at least a little bit of time and do their research. Because one of the things that I see all the time that really kind of irks me, and it's it's a matter of people trying to make a buck, and I don't begrudge anybody that, but there's you will see people that'll list things on eBay here in the States. Particularly some of the stuff from Spain, like some of the comics forum stuff, things that are not scarce by any stretch of the imagination. That if you get on Todo Colección and you search around on there, you'll find a dozen or more copies for €5 or less.
Cheap.
And people in the States are trying to get $50, $100, $200 out of some of this stuff. That.
Yeah, rare. This is rare. This is rare. It's not rare. You can find it if you know where to look.
Yeah. So, and that's research. They need to educate themselves, and whether that's by searching around online, finding those auction sites, figuring out what's what, or talking to somebody that actually has a little more experience in this little corner. It's worth that conversation or the time you spend looking around.
Yeah, hit one of the old school guys up. They'll tell you right away.
Just not me, because I don't have time.
Yeah, not Tim.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the thing, because in the foreign market, some stuff really is very hard to come by or rare, or you never see it. But there's a lot of stuff that's also not that rare if you know where to look.
There's also the aspect of just because it might actually be rare doesn't necessarily mean that the demand is there to warrant some ridiculous price.
Sure.
And I see that
Absolutely.
too, because I mean, hell, I've probably got 3 dozen books that are the only known copies that anybody's seen hit the market in a decade, but nobody but me gives a damn.
Yeah, like I'll see some no-name, non-key, some middle Copper Age book or whatever like that from some series, and I'll look at it on eBay and they've got it, very hard to find, rare, Spanish edition. It's a Comics Forum edition, and they want $30 for it, $40 for it. I'm like,
yeah,
that's ridiculous.
The terms rare, scarce are thrown around way too loosely in this hobby as a whole. It's I tell people all the time, they're like, oh well, don't you get excited anytime somebody submits an Amazing Fantasy 15? And I'm like, no, because I've seen enough of them to choke a damn goat. Yeah, that book isn't scarce by any stretch of the imagination. It's just in high demand.
Things can only be rare and scarce if you don't put in the effort to try and find it.
Get rare and scarce.
I will say this though, you guys. Let me interject though on that just for a second, and not to discount what anyone is saying, but there is something to be called for on kind of what I believe or what I call the American eBay premium kind of reality. Okay. And this is something Scott McManus wanted to get on and talk about a little bit as well. And it relates to, if you can get it on American eBay and you can be trusted that book's going to be shipped properly. It's not going to have to go through customs. You're not going to have to deal with translation. So I do believe there should be a premium. Maybe, you might say however slight or however whatever, but not every American can go to Todo Colección and do their homework and figure out how to do that.
I get that, but it's one thing when there's a little bit of a premium put on a book, that you could, if you knew where to get it, and it would cost you €10, and somebody's selling it for 25 US on eBay in the States. That's one thing, because there's the cost of shipping.
Yeah.
There's I get that. It's another thing,
and the time and energy.
It's another thing when it's that same €10 book that somebody's trying to get $300 out of, hoping somebody that just doesn't know better is going to lay out the cash.
Yeah, that's outrageous for sure. But there's definitely something to be said for the ease of being able to go to American eBay and buy it now.
Well, and let's face it, Americans are, as most countries call us, fat and lazy. So if we can sit at our computer or on our phone and buy this stuff, and it costs a little more, and we don't care, then so be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, if the market, if someone's willing to pay it, then how outrageous is it, right? If it doesn't sell, then it doesn't sell, right? Yeah, that's a whole other.
Yeah. Well, and it's like I'll give you an example. Like Cinco's. Cinco's are rare books. But you can sometimes find them if you do the legwork. You can find someone in Colombia that will sell you a Spidey Cinco for $30, but it might take you, to all the work involved to make that contact and that source. I don't see anything wrong with that same $30 Cinco. Maybe the buyer needing $80 for it on the American eBay market.
Yeah.
And then if someone says, well, I think that's too high because I can find that in Colombia for €30, then me as a seller, then go find it and go spend the 3 months it took me to go find it. So it does depend on the region. Things like low-hanging fruit, I consider Western Europe low-hanging fruit. Things in Spain.
How dare you insult my physical
Italy,
appearance, sir?
that shit's easy.
It all depends. It really does. Because again,
country-wise, if it's Colombia, fuck, man, put a big
again,
on
Matt,
it, because otherwise
you have to take into account a lot of the stuff that we saw as common and was all over the place for a long time is really starting to disappear from the market. There's not as many Cabanas Hellas books that are hitting the market. A lot of, like I said, a lot of the Williams stuff in Germany, you're not seeing as much of it. And if you do, the prices are way up from where they used to be. La Prensa stuff is a prime example of that. We used to see, the La Prensa Daredevil ones all the time, to the point where, we just kind of glossed right over them because, I can pick that up anytime I want it. You know what? Anymore, it's only maybe 2 or 3 times a year that I see those hit the market.
Yeah.
So,
that's true too.
Yeah.
As time has gone on, certain stuff has definitely gotten harder.
Well, and again, it's got to do with more people getting into collecting this stuff, because as the demand goes up and that supply starts to dwindle, it's not until that point that we're really going to realize the scarcity level on a lot of these books, because so many of them have sat there and been relisted time and time again over the years that, we don't know how many are out there. We don't know what the initial print runs were on most of them. We don't know how many survived. We don't know what's sitting in collections. A lot of the stuff, hell, who knows? It happens here in the States. Somebody could find a completely, unopened case of, pick a random foreign key, and, it could completely tank the market on that specific book.
Right.
We're also, another interesting aspect to that, Tim, is something that I think might be happening in some of these countries, and it's kind of getting again back to the American money going in, and for some of these collectors, they might see it as a corrupting influence. I know for a fact there are some French Canadian collectors that do not want to sell to Americans.
That's okay, because I know one that does.
Yeah, but I know I've spoken to there's a few French Canadian collectors within the community that have literally told me that he's been blacklisted in Canada for some dealers, because they don't want Americans taking these books out of the country, and they know that he, as a French Canadian, is sourcing these books and selling them on American eBay and to American collectors, and now they won't sell to him.
Yeah, well, but
so
again,
so some of that I think also is in play, where you have local indigenous collectors that maybe now are getting wise that there's a big fat pipe of their books going right out.
But you have to keep in mind too that that whole market is driven by not just collectors but dealers as well. Dealers have these books in their inventories, and the dealers aren't motivated by, well, I don't want this leaving the Quebec. Dealers are motivated by, I want money for this. And with some of the prices that some of the EH stuff is starting to realize, again, there's a little bit more of that coming to market now, but you're not seeing the keys like you used to. The Spidey 252s, the 238s,
the 129.
Yeah.
The 129s, the 121s.
Some of those keys are not as commonplace as they were, and the prices that they're starting to realize have increased again exponentially in the last 10 years, and the dealers aren't going to sell that in Quebec for $15 or $20 if they know that they can put it on eBay in the States and get 60 to 100. So those collectors are only going to have so much control over, how many of those books actually stay in their country of origin. South Africa is the same thing. Eventually, you're going to get somebody over there that gets a collection, and they're going to see that, people over here are willing to pay more for it than the people over there. And guess where that's going to get sold?
Yeah, and as this subculture for collecting grows, that invisible hand also grows. So, the market would move with that as well.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it almost makes me think that we could be getting to like a phase 2 of this foreign comic collecting, whereas phase 1 was all the stuff was just like out there, and now it's all being sucked dry and disappearing and being used up. And it's like,
no, there's still plenty of stuff to find, Ken. Trust me.
No, this is where phase 2 comes in, where we're going to get like the stuff that we don't really know about that much yet at all. You're going to get like another barrel load of wonderful foreign stuff. It's like, what? This was done in Colombia? What? That's certainly my.
Yeah, you'll have things start popping up that we didn't even know existed, because all of a sudden somebody who had these books, that they've been sitting on for who knows how many years, they all of a sudden find out, wait a minute, there's a market in America for this stuff?
Yeah.
And they're paying what for it? Yeah. Well, let me see what I've got here. And they bring it out, and all of a sudden you're seeing stuff you've never seen
especially
before.
with subcultures, like the Mexican horror stuff.
The couple of times that I've been down in Mexico, and both times was for conventions. And, there was the last time I was down there was in Toluca, which is, I don't know, about 45 minutes west of Mexico City. There was one guy at the show that had a lot of what I'll say is vintage stuff. He had some La Prenzas, mostly Novedades. And he had a stack of about 40 Navarro romance books. I almost bought the whole damn stack, only I didn't have room to put it in, my luggage to get it back to the States. So I picked up like half a dozen of them from him. But I mean, the guy spoke no English. I speak no Spanish. So I went over there, basically I'd pick out what I wanted, set it down. He'd go through with a calculator, come up with a price, convert it over to US dollars for me. I'd pay him. And then he'd give me like, I don't know, 5, 6 more books. He was thrilled that, somebody, from outside Mexico was there and actually gave a damn about, the books from Mexico. That's kind of how my conversation went with Jose Luis Duran too. He doesn't speak English. But there was a kid kind of right there at his table when I was there. I had him signing a couple of books. He was surprised that the only person that had any original La Prensa copies that he worked on was some gringo from the U.S. He didn't see any others throughout the entire show, and he asked me how I got a hold of them.
That's crazy.
That's cool.
Yeah, isn't it?
And it was awesome being down there and getting a chance to meet him, because the guy's little by little becoming a legend in the international collecting community.
Right.
Oh yeah, well deserved.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, let's. I have 1 or 2 listener questions I wanted to jump on before we kind of wrap. Suffice to say, Tim, you would be happy to rejoin us. I hope we didn't scare you off. You would come back.
Well, I'm always willing to, verbally abuse Matt. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a whipping boy. He's loved it since the beginning.
And I haven't even taken any shots at Bagley yet. I mean, come on.
Right.
Yeah, I'm kind of staying a little more quiet over here, so he doesn't. I'm hoping he forgets I'm over here.
I know you're there. Even from here, I can see the glistening of the top of your head.
There we go. He got one in on the wire. So, and we didn't get to Ken and talking about Guri. So
hell, no worries. We got many podcasts to do that. No problem.
Yeah, so we'll hit that.
Yeah.
We'll aim for that in the next one. So let me throw out a listener question and put it to all you guys. This is from Jeremiah Perry Hill. How can a new collector accurately perform pricing and valuation? Let's go to Tim first on that.
It's funny that you go to me on that, because on the CBCS forum there was somebody that was asking pretty much the same question. They were like, "Hey, how do I determine if this is a fair on this book?" There's on there. Answer his question. I didn't see it. I'm on there infrequently at best. But he's like, there is no real price guide for a lot of countries. It's just a matter of whether or not you feel that's a fair price and you'd be comfortable paying it. But when he made the statement that no price guide exists, I saw that. It was about a day later, and I said, "Well, that's not true, Jesse. There's a price guide. It's just in my head." No, it boils down to one thing. If you want the book and you're good with the price, buy the book.
Yeah.
That's for comics as a whole, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree,
yeah.
absolutely agree. But there's also the other way of looking at it is, I don't think this book is worth as much as I think it's going for, so I'm not going to buy it. Thereby, forever missing out.
Yeah, like you said about that Swamp Thing book. Like if you were willing to pay a premium for that just to complete your run, so for you the value was way higher than the person.
Oh yeah,
just a lot, right? Yeah, subjective to an extent.
Yeah, because there's books out there that I'm still looking for that guaranteed if they show up on the market, I'll be the one that owns them because nobody else is going to pay the stupid amount that I will.
Cool. Yeah,
the Filipino All-Star Western 10. Does it exist?
Look, at this point, it's still a myth.
Yeah.
Although I have the All-Star
White
Western 11
Buffalo.
and the Weird Western 12 through I think 16 or 17 from the Philippines.
Yeah.
There's only one Weird Western 11 that we've ever seen.
Yeah, but the guy that's got that is kind of never mind.
Anything else to add to that? Just general, like how a new collector should price things. Everyone kind of in agreement on that. What we said, what Tim said.
Very much in agreement. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, for the most part. For me personally, I just text him. If I'm not sure about something, I'll just get on the phone and be like, "Hey Tim, I got someone with this," and it's
at 4:30 in the morning,
and he'll tell me. Usually at 4:30 in the morning. Yeah, because I know you're up.
The other,
and you know what's crazy?
Good.
What's crazy about that is what Tim's talking about, and Ken has talked about, and Steven. I mean, what we've all talked about here for a while is getting. And I think this is what's difficult for new collectors, because since they started in the hobby, they've looked at the Overstreet price guide as like this Bible, right? And it's almost like you've got to divorce yourself from this idea that the market's saying that something is worth this with foreign specifically, because it's not going to work that way. There is, like Tim said, it's in its fucking head.
Oh well, and again, I mean, how many times have we seen it happen where a copy of a book sells for $100, and then a month later, a copy of the same book in lower grade sells for $150.
Yeah.
Yep. It happens all the time, and it can happen in the opposite direction too. So it's just we American collectors. I feel like we're I think on the last podcast we talked about that. Like they'll get into the foreign niche, and then when they find out there's no price guide, it's like they're paralyzed. You gotta fucking move away. You gotta divorce yourself.
They can't go to GPA. They can't go to Overstreet. They can't talk to their local dealer because they don't know anything about it. It's that lack of information. And again, it's not like any of the information that we do have up to date is hard to find. It's just a matter of breaking out of your antisocial shell and asking somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, we're harping on the social aspect.
You have to make friends. You have to talk to people.
You've got to make the contacts. You have to. In America, you can go to any store, any show, anywhere you like, and find the books you're looking for. With foreigns, you cannot. You've got to make the contacts and get more social.
I don't know. I never had a huge list of contacts, and I got a lot of really cool stuff.
Well, but that's because you're the lucky bastard.
Right.
There it is.
Yeah, the other thing on the price thing, if you're, if subjectively the price works for you, you certainly don't have to tell anybody else how much you paid for it.
No.
Nope.
Right? If you feel like you've overpaid, right? So the other question is from I think he self-identified as a newbie. It's Justin Hoffman. His question was about any foreign-based heroes that may have never been released in the States. Now this is probably a huge topic that we could probably dedicate a whole episode to. But
definitely.
Just a few that come top of mind from you guys. Any hot ones or ones that you think? I know Matt, you've mentioned
Phantomas.
Right, that's the one. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Pantomime.
Yeah.
There's original stuff from just about any country that's produced American material in their language as well. As you look at more and more of the various foreign auction sites, you'll see that stuff. But everywhere from Europe, Asia, literally the world
Australia.
over, they all have original material.
Yeah.
Did you especially in like the Scandinavian countries? I mean, you got asterisks and obelisks. They love their ducks up there. There's duck stories that were done, and when I say ducks, I mean Donald Duck, Uncle Scrooge, that stuff. There's original duck stories that were published in Norway, Sweden, Netherlands before they were ever published here in the States.
Yeah.
And there was a recent, I don't know if you guys saw it, I'll see if I can find it, but there was a guy, one of the artists, I think here in America, who worked with, he got permission from a bunch of, he did the research and he got permission from a bunch of families and publishers and stuff in Brazil. And they actually did up this big original art piece that featured all of these different heroes that were specific to Brazil in Brazilian comics.
Well, India too, and Doc knows a lot more about this than I do. They have a character over there similar to Spider-Man, but there's like 13 different characters.
Cool.
That are all spider related. Me and him had a conversation about it one night when we were on the phone. We were on the phone for like 3 hours. It's never a short conversation when we get on the phone together. But he was going through talking about the differences between them, the differences in the colors of their costumes. It's almost like the whole symbiote thing with Marvel. Only this stuff was done, I want to say late 60s, early 70s in India.
Right. Yeah, we should. I watched this video presentation, and I thought it was super interesting the way he was kind of approaching it from sort of an anthropological perspective, and I'd love to get him on and chat about that. Did you grow up? I saw there's like a UK one I always see. Ken Dan Dare.
Dan Dare, Eagle Comics. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Back in the 50s, Dan Dare, wonderful.
I personally collect Black Panther, and I can't tell you how many times I've had people try to frame the Panther, the original Panther from Australia. Yeah. People always say, "Oh, this was the original prototype for the Black Panther." Like, all right, I've had more than one vendor try to make me that pitch. Cool. Awesome. Well, Tim, this was cool having you on, man. I don't speak for everybody else, but I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Tim's always fun to talk to.
Cool. Yeah.
I have my moments. I can be entertaining. By nature, I'm not terribly social, but
that was great. Yeah, it was awesome. I'm sure I'll think of a million questions as soon as we hang up. So I look forward to getting you back on, and pardon any sort of newbie questions I might put to you, but
Oh no.
You are the expert.
That's what we're about as a podcast, is getting more people involved. So
this goes out to you, Eric, and everybody else out there that might be listening. Don't worry about asking a question that's going to make you sound like a newbie, because at some point we all were.
All were newbies.
Yeah.
And in some cases, we still are, because there is still stuff showing up we don't even know about.
One of the biggest things that we always tried to maintain with the core FCC group when this all started was not being derogatory towards people that don't know and that are curious. Trying to be
just be understanding.
Welcoming.
There's no elitism here.
Yep. No, not at all.
And hasn't been since the beginning.
Cool.
No, although you keep trying to push me in a position where it's like, oh, hey, he's the man. And I'm just like, nope.
Tim's the man. Hey, I'm still going with that. Tim is the man.
You were the first official guest we had on the show. So that
another first.
Speaks volumes. Yep. Cool. So let's just do some plugs and close this out. Yeah, it was good. Again, you can find us on iTunes, on Breaker, on Anchor. Please leave us a rating or a review. Click a bunch of stars. It makes us happy. Leave a rating if you could. Subscribe, even better. You can find us on Facebook. It's Comics Calling Podcast. And obviously there's a magazine group as well. Ken, your website is kenworthing.com. You have all kinds of stuff posted up there. What do you have coming up?
You do. What have I got coming up? I've got some more Alan Class stuff coming up, and some more La Prensa stuff coming up, hopefully.
Cool. That is Spanish for the Prensa. I don't know if you guys knew that.
Indeed. Hey, Tim, while I've still got you, can I just run something very, very quickly past you? The perfect translation for Auguri Mensal, what would you say? The English translation for it, yes.
I honestly am not entirely certain.
That's okay. That's a good answer because it took me
the kid.
Well, and
Auguri is
reason being is that
so close, Matt. So close.
Well, Portuguese, much like any other language, it has its regional dialects, and what they speak in Brazil is different from what they actually speak in Portugal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I only bring it up because I've tried to try and get an accurate translation of what Auguri Mensal is, and all I can pin it down to is it's the monthly kid.
Yeah. I think when they were marketing initially, it again, they were targeting those younger readers.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where that came from. Actually, the person to ask about that would be possibly Nuno.
Kazi.
Well,
or Nuno.
Nuno might know, or Robert might know as well.
Right.
So
just ask.
That's exactly the reason I keep making the statement. I am not an expert because I don't know everything.
Yeah.
But Tim knows who the experts are. That's
right.
Part of. I was going to mention that. One of the important parts of this is it's almost impossible to be an expert on everything because it's so vast.
Yeah, true,
but
true.
If you know who the experts are and within the FCC community, we know them, then you can find that information.
Here.
Yep.
And Matt, your handle once again is, where can people find you?
Find me on Instagram, Define999. I have a lot of really cool stuff coming that I'll hopefully be posting soon. I'm excited about it. I'm in the process of picking up a Satanas from the famous collector Rulo Pantoja.
Cool.
But I'm gonna say this: the first person who does an iTunes review for our podcast is going to get an issue 1 and 2 of FCC Magazine for free. You're just going to need to pay the shipping.
Cool.
I'm in the process of trying to print some more, but I'm going to say that right now. Go give us a positive review on iTunes, and you're going to get a issue 1 and 2 of FCC Magazine.
Right on.
All you got to pay for is shipping.
Ooh.
Cool stuff.
Right.
Good deal.
And that is definitely worth the price of entry. Believe me.
Here. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, good one. And Steven, where can people find you?
I have TGR Comics. You can go on Facebook to TGR Comics or on Instagram at TGR Comics. Or my personal moniker, Bago Fleas, BAGOFLEAS. I'm also on Instagram at that. And of course, I do signature facilitation services with CBCS. I'm still waiting, Tim, to get that first quarter scheduling for the shows.
Right.
We'll talk about that later. I'm not going to go into detail.
It's not really.
Okay. But let's say it has nothing to do with me.
And
Tim,
where
one of the
can
show promoters?
Right on.
And
Tim, where can people find you if they want to reach out and have you
not
answer their email because you're too busy?
I'm never home. Like I said, the last 2 years, 70 conventions. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram.
You could just send in a book to CBCS and put a Post-it note on it, "Dear Tim," and write a note.
Okay, yeah. So, real quick. I know you're trying to wrap this up. So, one of my very good friends who I love dearly, his name is Matt Edwards. He is one of our independent contractors.
Wow. I love Matt.
When we're at conventions and somebody submits a foreign book, he made stickers of me that he puts on the bag.
Yeah. Sticker of your face.
When they get to Dallas, they know they have to image the book and send me the images.
Oh, that's cool.
That's neat.
That's cool.
They're great stickers too. I got some.
he'll even be fumbling because he'll put it like right over a character's head, so it looks like Tim's
Yes,
face and head on the
I
superhero
love
character.
it so much. I don't even have words to explain it.
That's cool.
That Matt
Actually,
Edwards is a fun guy.
No, I mean people,
You know-
can reach out to me though. If they have a question, they can email me, either through Facebook or my work email is tbildhauser at cbcscomics.com.
Great.
Cool. It's, I don't always get back to people quickly, but I eventually get back to them. But
Cool.
when I'm on the road, I don't have a whole lot of time to check my emails.
Of course.
And what's your Instagram handle? Because I know it's a little different. It's not like a typical what you might
Hell,
think.
I
What's
don't
your
remember Matt set that up.
Actually, you know what? I know we're
Because it's not like Tim or Tim Bildhauser or anything.
I know
Anyway.
we're wrapping up, but another question just occurred to me, and we don't have to go off on a full thing. But
Cliffhanger.
now
Get the
it's good.
cliffhanger
It's
for
a
next.
question, So Matt and I were talking the other day, and there's the first appearance of Spider-Man in Japan in that Playboy book, right?
Yes.
Now, if I
yeah.
had that, I personally would not want that in a slab because then I can't see it anymore, right? So, is there? I mean, it's maybe hard to tell from your perspective, Tim, but do you think people might be more reluctant to get book slab because of the way firsts are published within a compendium of some sort and foreigns?
It all depends on the collector. And quite frankly, and this is going to sound kind of ridiculous coming from somebody that works for a grading company, but not every book needs to be graded in a slab. The majority of books that I own are in Mylars. They're, in a Mylar with two backing boards for a little extra support. Not everything has to be graded. That's one thing that, it's a mentality that's developed that, oh, well, if it's not in a slab, it's not worth anything. Well, that's not the case either.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Some things are better off not in a slab because they can't be truly appreciated if they are.
Right.
And the Japanese Playboy are a clear example of that because you're not going to get to see any naked chicks, man.
Well, it's one of those things too, where like, for me, putting things in a slab, especially if you've got, half a dozen copies of the same book from half a dozen countries, to be able to flip through page by page and see the subtle differences there. Did they change something in the background? Did they change a color? Did they alter the artwork in any way? It's again, it's that
truth,
that research aspect of everything that, is more valuable to me than having the book in a slab.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting
thing.
American
books have CBRs all over the place. With an American book, you can find the interiors anywhere.
Right. Right.
Very true.
So that's another unique thing about foreign books, like you just said, Tim. Like, comparing them side by side, looking at the pages, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Once it's slabbed, that it's removed, right? That joy of it is gone, really. Right?
Yeah. Well, and there's certain things too. I mean, like one of the books that really stands out. It's Superman number, I think 7 from South Africa, Battle Axe Press. It prints Superman 53, which you'd probably recognize the cover if you saw it. It's him standing there. The background of the cover is an American flag. It's a nothing issue really. It's just kind of a it's just a run of the mill Superman story. But the last page that Battle Axe printed in that book is the first Doomsday cameo of him, his fist punching its way out of its, his container. Until I bought the book because, I'm a fan of Jerry Ordway, and I figured, okay, this is cool. I can, buy this because I think I got it for like $5 or something. And I had Jerry sign it. When I opened it up, when I got it in and started flipping through it, and I saw that page in there, I'm like, wait a damn minute. So, obviously I then took that book to Dan Jurgens and Brett Breeding and said, hey, can you guys sign this for me? And Dan looks at me, he's like, but I didn't work on this issue. I said, but you did, Dan. And I opened it up and showed him that. And he was just like, what the hell?
That's awesome.
Well, the disappointing part about that is I've got, I think, issue 7 and issue 9 from that run. I don't have the 8 and the 10. I have not seen copies come up for sale. Battle Axe stopped printing Superman with issue number 10 which I have to think, being that they were printing those cameos of Doomsday's Fist, they were next going to print Death of Superman.
Yeah. Wow.
And that just didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
Interesting. Wow.
Sucks.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mhm.
Well, that was a good topic to close on. That was, thanks for tackling that.
Yeah. So I guess the big takeaway from that is, when you get a foreign book in, open it up and look through it.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks everyone. Ken, do you want to close this? I think you have don't you do the honors? And
Well, I
sounds?
could start off by saying thank you to every listener who's listened to this fascinating podcast. To be fair, I've not even edited this behemoth yet, but thank you so much, Tim, for doing this. I've learned a ton of stuff as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank
At
you,
any
Tim.
point you guys want me back on, I mean, I'm sure we can find more stuff to talk about. There's not a lack
Oh,
of it.
hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna happen.
All right.
Foreign comics calling. Ho!
Spread the sickness.
Yeah.
Read the sickness.
Okay.
Typhoid Mary yourself up. Come on, guys.
I'm going to pass on that.
Okay, everybody. Well, thanks for listening to us again, and we'll catch you next time round, which will be, I guess, very, very shortly. Cheers, all.